free up your time as a business owner because, like I said, there are some things only you can do and you need adequate time to do those. As the business grows, it becomes more thinking and less doing that you do as a business owner. And that's another shift that can be a bit of a mindset thing of like you feel lazy and like you're not accomplishing anything, but it's super valuable and important. And
Ben, I don't even know where we start. We've got a long history, so
yeah,
I'm excited for this.
yeah, should be good. Should be
So,
good.
like I said, we like to talk about the journey, the past, present, future for the M&A space. So let's just start there. Maybe a little bit about because you've grown and sold companies before. Give
Mm.
us the quick version of your progression to getting there.
Yeah, so for me, my journey actually starts with classical piano, which was a big obsession for me in my
Like all good
early
stories
teens.
should.
Like all good stories should, absolutely,
I
yes.
didn't know
Everyone's
this
journey.
actually.
Yeah, there was no lemonade stand or paper route or lawn mowing when I was younger. Like, I'm not one of those business always in the DNA guys. It was a sudden falling in love. So I was madly obsessed with classical piano. Went through the grades here in Australia, studied at the Sydney Conservatorium, but someone threw a monkey wrench in that obsession, or like put something really, really tempting and interesting in my path, and it was the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Mm.
Um, Not long after it came out, so that gives you an idea about how old I am. I think it was relatively new at the time, um, and I read it, and I'm like, this business thing, that's very interesting. I want to learn more. And so I bought and read all of his books. So like he sold them really well, obviously. Um, but just the idea that everything around you is made by a business. It's a group of people coming together, like creating systems, creating wealth. They can be traded, they can be sold. You can own them and have passive income from them, and they can grow and they have multiples that grow and all that stuff. And I'm like, I want to own businesses. I want to do that, like what the rich dad was doing with the buying and investing in businesses, and but that's very interesting. Bit of real estate too, but mainly the businesses. I felt I could do more because I'm not very handy, so real estate was kind of not an option. So in one of the books, he said something like the lawyer and the accountant see everything that happens in the business. I'm like, aha, I'm going to be not a lawyer. Was my first thought. That sounds terrible. That sounds awful. All the conflict and the reading and the ugh. So, like, being an accountant, I'm okay with maths. So I thought, okay, I'm going to be an accountant. So changed my career like a year and a half into study at university, college. I was studying at the Conservatorium of Music doing classical piano. I'm like, you know what? This isn't really for me. There is no career. This is not the path to my new obsession. And so I switched over to becoming an accountant and did not fit in for many years of that part of my
Still
career.
don't fit in.
um, so I've got a lot of great friends who are accountants. I know that's a cheesy stereotypical to say, some of my best friends are accountants. But they were in it for a different reason than I was. Like they were interested in climbing the ladder. They were interested in like getting things right. They're like the C, the conscientious on the disc profile,
Yeah.
getting things right, following the rules, making sure it's all done, no one gets audited, that kind of thing. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of nice, but that's not the end for me. Like this is a stepping stone on a completely different path for me. So working inside of businesses was helpful, but I realized that I wasn't moving as fast as I wanted and towards owning a business. So I ended up starting a business. The thing that finally kicked me into gear of starting my own business was my first child was on the way. She's now just turned 10. So we were looking about 11 years ago when I found out that my wife at the time was pregnant. I'm like, okay, I've got to do this because business was my ticket to spending lots of time with my children because I was only going to have one and their initial years were like never come again kind of things. So I started a tax practice, started a bookkeeping business with the co-founder. Bookkeeping business grew really fast, sold that to my partner, sold the tax practice as well, and just solely dedicated myself to business coaching. Because again, I had one of those temptations appear on the path for me. in the first year of working as a trainee assistant accountant. The back of a business magazine was an opinion article sharing the story of the Mexican fisherman and the Harvard grad by a business coach. And I found out what business coaches do. And I'm like, that sounds like closer on the path than being an accountant. I want to be a business coach. And so I kind of segued myself there through, after the selling of the businesses was just doing that. And I've been business coaching for about 10 years. And then the final thing that got me into M&A was somebody asked a question. And the question was, what is the highest leverage on your skills that someone else could get? If they had the same skills, what's the highest leverage they could get on those skills? And for me, like, instead of applying my coaching to grow other people's businesses and charging a fee, which is like, it's a nice fee and it's a good ROI for them. But like, if I part owned the business, so much more money I can earn and probably more impact I could have as well. And that was the thing that finally tipped me over a little over a year ago into like, okay, this needs to be the theme for 2023 is getting into acquisitions. And here we are.
Yeah. So a long journey to get to this point where now you're, I don't know exactly when you started getting them, but I know you have several in a pretty short period of time too.
Yeah. I acquired 3 in 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
Yeah. Which is
So
crazy.
yes, when things suddenly start, it
Bit of
would
a
have been
late
over a
bloomer
longer
there,
period of
Ben.
time, but yeah, yes. And yes, I'm one of those kids in their teens that like is really, really short, and then all of a sudden, we start to grow,
Yeah.
shooting up really fast.
Michael Jordan.
Yeah, sure, yeah. So yeah, it would have been, not quite on such a compressed period of buying those businesses, but there was delays with lawyers and Christmas and everything like that. So, but yeah, the plan is to acquire a few more this year. I've raised money for one of the acquisitions, the rest with seller finance, one's with partners, including you, Forrest, for those who are listening. And yeah, diverse set of businesses, and that's keeping me interested, and I'm excited about looking at the next deals.
How do you think your skills and experience as a coach has transferred over to working, in the M&A space? Like, is it pretty horizontal, or how has that been with using those skills for it?
Yeah, it's been a pretty seamless transition, I think. Like, I've been advising my clients how to buy and sell businesses
Mm-hmm.
and helping them with due diligence on both the buy and sell side. Like, I've been doing that for years, and I sold a couple of my own businesses. So like that experience directly translates. And then, I help business owners mainly be more profitable using the numbers as a diagnosis tool, and then business coaching them on however detailed they need the step-by-step instructions, or getting their mindset out of the way. And that applies equally well if there's an operator in the business, or if I'm a minority partner and there's a majority partner running it, like I'm advising them, just as if they were a coaching client. And
Mm-hmm.
that's worked out really well so far. One of my businesses I'm a bit more active in. So one of the businesses, I bought out a minority partner in a coaching program, and I am making some changes. I'm taking some sales calls and running some coaching calls to prove a new offer, and then we're going to hire people to take that over. But mostly I'm basically coaching, but having a bigger impact and getting more money out of it. And the asset value, not just a fee or a profit distribution as well. So it turns out to directly translate, which is fantastic.
So you really are getting a higher leverage from the same input. It sounds like that question that blew your mind is totally coming to fruition.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is a relief. You
Right.
have this theory about what you want to do with your career next, and it's good that it's working so far.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'd love to, if you could, maybe a smaller version, because I know you could do 10 webinars first of the numbers, but
Yeah.
let's dive into a little bit of that for your average business owner or M&A person who's trying to get some more profit out of their reach and purchase. Could you go over maybe some of like the 10 commandments or whatever, kind of like these are the rules you need to do to get it in order?
Yeah, absolutely. So whenever I start with a client or looking at an acquisition or just onboarding an acquisition, there's like my little mental checklist of things that I go through to check for like how can we improve profit, how can we remove obstacles and bottlenecks, that kind of thing. The first one I go through is my magic trick. This is the one that makes the client go, "Boy, am I glad I hired Ben." Um, and this is also makes me relieved when I do this on an acquisition, because then it's like, oh, thank God I've just paid for my legal fees. Um, so it's just going through your software expenses, your minor expenses, the things that are recurring, just going through and saying, do we need this? Do we need less of this? Is there a cheaper option? Like spending 15 minutes just going through and being like, oh, I don't need that gym membership. I don't need that piece of software. We tested that and I forgot to cancel it after the free trial, and they've been billing me $100 a month ever since. Like, just, most businesses have a lot of little inefficiencies and waste. So like going through the software is the easy piece.
Mhm.
And then beyond that, we're getting to slightly bigger changes of going through the major costs in the business, like the team members, and seeing like, are they being effective enough? Can we replace them with cheaper people or more effective people? You don't necessarily need to like buy a business, fire all the US based staff and then go offshore. Like, some people think that's a terrible thing that PE firms do, or venture capital firms or whatever. You don't necessarily need to do that in such a cutthroat way, but sometimes like there's been a number of businesses I've seen where the US based team are terrible and they
Mhm.
need to be replaced. So Jesse, one of my clients, he had a marketing agency, and there was a guy he was paying 50 grand a year. The business didn't actually need that guy, so Jesse fired him and said, "Thank God for Ben. Ben's just paid for multiple years of his coaching." Um, so yeah, that was helpful, to go through looking at the staff. And any other major costs, like if you're a materials business or if you're a SaaS, your hosting costs, like what's the big costs related to the thing you do for clients or your customers, and can we make them more efficient? Then there's two other pieces to look at. One is, how long has it been since you raised your prices? Um, because for a lot of people, it's one of the things they forget or they put off. I got a Jedi mind trick that I usually pull on people. But again, this isn't the 10 webinars version of the answer. Um, and then the other piece is changing the inclusions, like changing your offer. So if you're a marketing agency and you're offering Google ads, Facebook ads, social media management, social media content, you're also doing direct cold outreach, all those kind of things, pull out the social media management or social media content, have the client do it, because it's not very profitable. The client isn't keen to pay a huge amount of money for it. And so fixing that improves the percentage of your profitability. And generally, if you actually work through all your costs, a low profit service, after you take off the cost of providing it, that's generally unprofitable for you to provide when you add in all the other overheads. So changing the inclusions there. For a product-based business, have a look at the products you're selling. Stop selling the ones that aren't profitable unless it's an important first purchase and people then buy something ridiculously profitable afterwards or get upsold. Just looking at what you're including in your offer and pulling out the stuff that's less profitable and adding in things that are more profitable. So that's the short version. So
Mhm.
trim the minor recurring expenses you've forgotten about, look at your staff and delivery costs and price rise, and offer inclusions. Like that's the big four.
Mhm. Yeah, and then the other one that I think you had a really big impact on me, because full disclosure, Ben was I was one of Ben's clients for what 18 months or so, and
Hmm.
we did double the business in that time. But the other one that really made an impact on me was the gross margin, because that's really teaching me that that's really all you have to work with. So if you
Mm.
like, you need to really be careful about that and get that down to one third, I guess, or you said 66% is
Yeah.
really like the golden standard.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something no one really talks about enough. So thank you for giving me the opening to talk about my favorite topic. Um, So yeah, gross profit margin is about like your what's what's the amount of revenue you have left over after you take away the costs of delivering the service or the products. So if you're a marketing agency and you do run Facebook ads for your clients, then it's the cost of the team doing the Facebook ads and talking to the client about their results. If you have a product-based business, then you've got your revenue minus the costs of the product itself and all the shipping to get it all around the place. We're not talking about credit card fees, sales commissions, any of those other expenses, just purely what's the cost of the thing you just sold. And if after you take away those costs from the revenue, if you've still got like 66% of the revenue left, meaning it costs you a third or less of the revenue to deliver the thing, then generally I find those are the businesses that can grow. They don't burn out the owner from overwork, and the owner never gets too busy to hire people, or getting too busy and yet somehow still doesn't have enough money to hire people, which is it's usually people get stuck between the 30-60K range, the early seven figures, and usually the mid seven figures in annual revenue. Those are the points where a bad gross margin will stall things, and you'll be like spinning your wheels. Why aren't we growing? What's going on? Usually that's the hidden culprit that's harder to spot. With good gross margin means there's tons of money left over for marketing of the clients, for paying managers to help you with fighting fires, for paying yourself, for having profit, for covering all your other expenses. So like getting that kernel right is really important. It's like, if you've ever played an app-based game on your phone, like Candy Crush or something, it's the thing you are doing all of the time on that game needs to be addictive and keep you engaged. Like they need to get that kernel right before they put all the trimmings around it and make it look pretty and all that kind of stuff. If they don't have that core piece right, you're going to get bored of the game no matter how the rest of it looks. And it's the same thing in your business, as if you don't have the gross profit margin right, business is going to suck no matter how pretty you make your website, or even how compelling your marketing is, like, or how good you are in a sales call, or how your clients love your service. Like if you don't get that right, business can't grow.
Yeah, because it's really like all you have to work with to pay for everything else is from that pool. And
Yeah.
you help me come up. You obviously every business is different, but having some kind of rules of thumb, like generally this is the area you want to be. Like 1/3 cost of goods sold, 1/3 overhead, 1/3 profit. It's like a pretty good ratio. Or like then you could do 10% for marketing, and like just having those in line really helped me to like assess the health of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 5 to 10% of revenue for marketing, 10 to 20% profit after paying the owner for the job they're performing. Just so we know that is the business actually profitable, or is it just because the owner is willing to hustle for minimum
Right.
wage because his business is growing?
Right.
Like he's growing a business that's not profitable. Stop.
I love that. Like, are you actually reinvesting in the business, or you're just not profitable? Right.
Yes, exactly. I
Reinvesting
wrote
in
a
the business sounds a lot better than you're not profitable.
Yeah, I wrote a blog post ages ago called "Are Growth Expenses the Real Reason Why You're Unprofitable?" Yeah.
Yeah. So having those in place is just so key, because without it, you're crippled.
Mm, absolutely.
Yeah. So you really helped me kind of understand how critical those are, and then that's really why I wanted to bring you in on the deals that we do, is to be able to watch over those, and then go into more complicated things like compensation structures, or cash flow projections, or performance
Mm.
bonuses, all those things, be able to run the numbers on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's my unique selling proposition as a partner in all this. Is like I'm really good at the numbers stuff, and I've helped a lot of people with it. And it seems to be unique in like if I just said I was a business coach, I'm like, there's a billion of those, but someone
Right.
that can help you with the numbers, yeah, that's a bit different.
Yeah, the term that really stuck with me was the profit coach. That's what I've always
Yeah,
referred to as my profit
yeah.
coach.
I used to use virtual CFO, but that means different things to different people. And the profits coach is like, oh, he's going to help us make more profits. It's really obvious and easy. Yeah.
Right. That's always a good return.
Yeah, so yeah, that's what I'm doing with the acquisitions is using my skills to help grow their profits. I can't claim all the credit for how we're doing in the business we've got together, because it's been a really good team effort. I'm enjoying that. The coaching business is growing, and I've run that exercise of going through and trimming all the software and going to teach the clients in the program that. And then yeah, the business I raised money. The third one I raised money to invest in. Um, and that one's already growing and heading in the right direction. Even though I only bought it last week, a week
Mhm.
ago, two weeks ago. Yeah. Um, and it's nice to know that my thesis works. Like I thought, oh yeah, if I just if I own them and I coach them, that'd work too. And yeah, so far it's
Mhm.
going well.
Yeah,
Very
that way
cool.
you get to capture that. Go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah. I'd love to learn a little bit more about what you learned from selling your businesses for one, and then how you kind of were able to implement it into your coaching, and also what you're doing now.
Sure. So selling the businesses, the thing I learned is that seller finance is the best. Um, if someone can't come up with capital really quickly. So the two businesses I sold, the buyers never went and got a loan from a bank. One borrowed money from their parents, and the other one paid me off over time, seller financing. I found that was really helpful. In both situations, I didn't use lawyers because I knew the people very well, and they were both accountants. So, like, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, doing what's right is kind of built in. Um, but I think that was lucky, and I'm not doing that anymore. Using lawyers all the time.
Yeah. Don't push your luck, right?
Don't push my luck, exactly. I learned it was about making the deal work for them and be appealing for them, like something that's really going to help them achieve their goals, and yet still provides, a good exit for me, and the terms work for me. So, like, creating a win-win. And the other thing that I've learned is that a lot of this stuff isn't rocket science. I thought that there would be some secret to it, or some thing that no one actually talks about. Like, that there's some silver bullet or some landmine that I was going to step on, that I wasn't aware of. But it turns out that, like, the process is fairly straightforward. It requires skill to do it well, and so, like, having experience and practice on it is really, really helpful. But yeah, it's like there isn't any hidden complications. It's like you make a good deal, you get a lawyer to check it, and then you make sure the deal actually goes through. Um, how it affected my coaching is that it was an option I was now suggesting to clients when it was appropriate, or to, like, give them stretch their minds about what they could achieve if they wanted to, because some people are like, oh, I just want to make an extra $1,000 a month so that my personal life is a bit more comfortable. I'm like, yeah, we could do that. Let's do that now. 10-15 minutes, trim your software. Okay, good. Now let's talk about your real goals. Here is what I see is possible for your business, including it can be sold, you can have investors buy into it. So, like, it added more tools for my toolkit, and it gave more options for my clients, of things that they could do. And I do really love helping people hit their goals, and ideally hit goals they never thought that they could reach for in the first place, if that's what they want. Um, so yeah, that's and what was the other question? What am I doing now? What am I up to now?
Exactly how
Mhm.
that's influenced your current role in the businesses that you're acquiring, which you kind of touched on.
Yeah, so knowing that I can sell these businesses I'm acquiring is helpful, because I think, for perspective, it takes pressure off pulling distributions out of them every single month, as like a reward for my time, or, like, for me to say I'm sensibly allocating my time among the different opportunities. Like, yes, I can invest in these because they can be sold, like knowing the sales process, having worked with investors, um, having helped clients sell their businesses. Like, I now know there are a range of people I could sell to, there are a range of deal structures that I could sell. And so some of these businesses, there's a roll up that Forrest and I are working on. There's, the coaching business. Not sure when that will sell. That might be like a 5-year thing. It might probably a holding it for a while kind of a scenario, because there's a lot we can do with that one. And then the business I bought with investor money, the intention is to sell that within 2 or 3 years. It's being specifically groomed for a sale, within 2 to 3 years, and possibly sooner. So I guess it's just giving me different options for these three. I'm also looking at other deals like the roll up Forrest and I are doing. We're looking at more deals to bolt onto that. I'm considering maybe doing a roll up or having a portfolio of coaching businesses, because I know how to pull the levers on them and make them more profitable. And then the investment is like, I'm calling it coaching plus capital, and like I'm raising money and I'm bringing capital and coaching to minority invest in businesses, grow them, and then lovely cash flow returns for investors, possible sale if the founder wants to do that. But they also get my coaching, and I get a piece in exchange for providing the coaching and bringing the deal together. And that is a case study just to test whether the thesis works. If it does, I'll raise more money to invest in more businesses in that format in future. But for now, like it's a great learning how to raise money, which again, no rocket science. When you're just raising money from your network, there's less compliance issues. So yeah, for the moment, this feels like the beginning of the journey for me. I am anticipating like a much larger portfolio and sales of some of the businesses. So like, I want a multi-million-dollar portfolio that's providing at least $1 million a year in income, so that me and my girls can have a great life. And, my girls can reach their potential, explore any interest they have to see if, what's their new passion, what's the business for them, or the classical piano for them, and be able to show them the world, travel, spend time with my friends, spend time with my girls. I have other hobbies. This isn't the season where I spend a lot of time on them, but I enjoy learning new things and like deep diving into them for a month or two at a time. Like I paint it. That one's not one of mine, but I just like trying new things or learning new languages or something like. And having time for that and the flexibility and freedom to not work will help with a lot of that. So for me, I've only bought 3 businesses. I will probably, the intention is to probably have bought in 2 or bought 10 by the end of this year. But the more deals there are, the more I can acquire. That's my thinking at the moment. It'll be very interesting for me to watch this podcast back in later this year and see how the year went.
Yeah, right. It's almost like a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like do you kind of have like Jaron is very big on this, is having the end in mind. Like, what are we doing this for? And then working backwards from there to say, like, this is the lifestyle that I want, or the things that I want. How do I work back into that? It sounds like you kind of have that set out for lifestyle with you and your family, and knowing it's going to take a couple businesses to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, I'm a big fan of the working with the end goal and with numbers around it specifically. Like one of my clients said, we want to sell our business for $10 million in 3 years. I'm like, oh, you're a $300,000 a year revenue business. Well, that's going to be a very intense 3 years for you. Why 10 million? What's the magic number there? And so I talked it through with them, and inevitably they came to, we want $150,000 a year of passive income. Like, oh, okay. Well, you only need to get your business to $2 to $4 million in revenue a year. You don't need to get it to $10 million in revenue a year. Working out 150,000 invested at like a 12% return, adding back the capital gains tax and broker fees that had happened when they sold their business,
Mhm.
working out based on a standard 3x multiple what the profit would have to be, and then based on like a 20% net profit margin what the revenue would have to be, like working backwards, like really specifically. And then they say, okay, cool. And then goodbye burnout and goodbye $5,000 a month wasted on Facebook ads. They went from in the red to 100K profit for the year just from that one conversation. They're
Mhm.
getting clear on what's the end goal, and therefore what's the path going to look like to get there.
Mhm.
So yeah, I have numbers around behind all this, but like, I don't want to be talking for too long.
No, understood. I like that one. And I know we are coming towards time, but I think one of the critical pieces that we haven't discussed that you've really helped me with and obviously helped your clients with, and that story is a good example of, is the mindset piece.
Mm.
Because I think that's half the battle is just getting that right. And that's something that you really focus on for your clients. Obviously numbers is one thing, it's very tactile, right? Like they're right there. The
Mm.
numbers are what they are, but the mindset piece is really just as important.
Yes, absolutely. And having the numbers helps highlight where there's a mindset issue.
Like an inconsistency.
An inconsistency, but it's more like seeing reality objectively with the numbers. So
Mm.
someone might be saying, "Oh, my business is about to die. It's going really terrible," and I say, "Okay, cool. Let's just double check that and see why it's about to die. Like, do you have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved in the bank account in the business? Yes. Do you have money set aside for tax? Yes. Do you have clients on recurring contracts and a very low churn rate? Yes. Is there anything going wrong with your industry? Is AI about to swallow it or something? No, nothing like that." I'm like, okay, cool. Why exactly do you feel like your business is about to die? And they're like, well, when you put it that way, there's no basis in reality for
Right.
me feeling like this. I'm like,
They
okay,
lost two clients in a week, right?
yeah, exactly. So it's a mindset issue. So then we start talking about like, okay, how do we make sure that your mindset isn't making you miserable and isn't making you ineffective? Like you're not making the right decisions, you're not focusing on the right things. So I mean, there's all sorts of mindset issues. Like most business owners have a preferred area of the business where their career is based on, or where their comfort zone is, marketing, sales, client delivery, or something. One of my clients was really, really good at marketing, for example. And so like his business grew and he hired people to do the fulfillment for this particular service. And business was going well, but he could not get past 1 million very far because he was the only one that could do marketing. He couldn't hire a marketer that
Mm.
stuck and that he was happy with, because it was his area. And so it was like it had to be done his way or his particular way of doing it. He hired people who just reflected back to him what he wanted to hear, and he didn't necessarily hire people who were better than him. And so they wouldn't stay for very long before they had to be fired.
Mhm.
Um, and so those areas where we are stronger are hard to hire for, and that's a mindset issue. It's a way you're thinking about, like, marketing has to be done this way, or this kind of a person will be great for our marketing, for example. Those are errors in your thinking or ineffective ways of thinking. I had a great mindset coach who was a big help to me and made me realize that mindset is very, very powerful, and it is something that, when combined with the objective reality of the numbers, like the two of them can really unlock things. um, so it was it's one of the things I'm always keeping an eye on.
Mhm.
It's different when I'm acquiring businesses. My mindset is one of the things I need to keep an eye on. But if like there's a majority partner in there, their mindset is important. But the relationship is different because they haven't specifically hired me to help them with that, as well as
Mhm.
the numbers. So
Yeah.
it's just a different way I have to deliver the message. But generally, when I share how mindset has been helpful for me, and I share some of the things that have worked with them, they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense, I'll try it.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's really the key factor with a lot of these big decisions or perceptions is really just how they're thinking about it. Not necessarily like what it is the numbers, but how they're thinking about it is the mindset.
Yeah, exactly. If you're driving a car and you're looking at your dashboard there, and it says that you're going a certain speed, that's totally different to you having just come off a highway and you're driving around the suburban streets going, man, this is really slow. And you subconsciously speed up. If you're not looking at actually how fast you're going and what the speed limit is, you can get in trouble just following your gut like that. I'm definitely a fan of using your gut and using your intuition, but verifying it occasionally can be helpful.
Yeah, and verifying it with a third party helps a lot too.
Yeah, having someone to bounce ideas off and second pair of eyes. Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to cover before we finish up is something that you helped me out with also is like the couple of the D's about different tasks, like the delegate, delete, do. Can you cover that piece really quick? Because I think that's a huge one, especially for smaller business owners who find themselves doing everything. I find that once they make that switch to be like, hey, you don't need to do everything, it's like life changing for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so hard. They really struggle with it.
Yeah, that's one of those mindset things. And I tend to notice that there's certain revenue levels that people get stuck on until they learn to let go of different things. So like if you're the one that does everything, there is a limit of how much time you have, and therefore there is a cap on your income and the revenue of the business. Once you get happy letting certain things go and letting more go and letting more go and letting more go, it's like that removes the glass ceiling you've placed ahead of yourself. So like if you are doing everything and then you hire a VA to answer some customer support emails, that then enables you to grow to, raise the glass ceiling a bit. If you let go of the client delivery stuff or fulfillment or manufacturing stuff, like that raises the ceiling fairly high. If you let go of the marketing sales, it raises the ceiling. If you let go of the management, it raises the ceiling. If you let go of control and hire a CEO, but not that they have the whole control, but they've got a lot more ability to do what they want to do. Like you let go of that, like you can hire someone who's so much better than you at growing your business, and that can raise.
That's a part of the ego sometimes.
Yes, exactly. So letting go of the ego, like why aren't you letting go of these things? It's a very interesting thing to dive into. So as far as letting go of tasks, what you're talking about is the time audit. It's a quick time saver is the exercise I call. I use a lead magnet. And it's basically go through everything you're doing and see if you can eliminate it. Like, does it need to be done at all? That's the first question. This is based on something, Tim Ferriss, 4-Hour Workweek. Eliminate it. The second option is, can it be automated? Because computers and software are generally faster, cheaper, and more accurate. If you can't eliminate it and can't automate it, then you think about maybe, can I delegate this to someone cheaper? Well, not necessarily cheaper, but does delegating it then enable me to have more impact and more than the cost? If you can't eliminate it, you can't automate it, and you can't delegate it, and there are a few things like this that only you can do as the business owner, like setting the strategy and deciding on the culture and the vision. In that case, give yourself a short amount of time to do it, because the more time you give yourself, the more the task will expand. So like giving yourself a short deadline to make sure you only focus on execution and the important pieces. So eliminate, automate, delegate, and then deadline. There was also like somebody else came up with a whole bunch of D's, like do, delegate, defer, delete. I like putting things off if they're not absolutely necessary. It is quite enjoyable to go, I don't need to think about this right now. It goes. So deferring is helpful. I use Boomerang for Gmail. I have for years. Like, okay, I don't need to think about this until later, but I do want to be reminded about this thing later. So just Boomerang this email. Those are some helpful things. If you go through all those tasks and do that, then it helps free up your time as a business owner, because like I said, there are some things only you can do and you need adequate time to do those. As the business grows, it becomes more thinking and less doing that you do as a business owner. And that's another shift that can be a bit of a mindset thing of like you feel lazy and like you're not accomplishing anything, but it's super valuable and important. And, taking the time to get your own head right, not just problem solving or trying to come up with ideas, but like keeping an eye on your mindset so you don't sabotage what you've built or don't waste time going down the wrong alleyway instead of straight ahead on the shortest path. Like all that is really valuable.
Yeah, and I like Dan Martell has a good take on it too, where you kind of price out those items based off of the hourly wage that you could pay someone to do it, and you kind of set your own hourly rate. And if it's below that, whatever that delta is, you're costing yourself or your company that amount per hour. And so you can just look at it from a math standpoint.
Yeah. He wasn't where I first heard the idea, but I heard very good things about how he's packaged them all in his book. Buy Back Your Time, I think it's called.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, keep an eye on your time and your mindset as the business owner, and having the data. It's hard to drive a car very well or in challenging situations when you don't have a dashboard, with all the the mileage and your speedometer and all the other names of things that's not coming to me right now. How much fuel you've got, the oil warning lights, all the different warning lights. Like you can drive in much more challenging situations and drive better if you've got access to that, those numbers, those objective realities. So looking at the numbers, some mindset, and keeping an eye on your time is the big three important things as a business owner. And as someone who owns a business, you've got to make sure that somebody is looking at those things. If you're just an investor and you've got a CEO, you've got to make sure the CEO is doing those things.
Yeah, and then get a coach to help you with it too, right?
Yes, absolutely. You should all hire Ben. Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. Well, Ben, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a blast. I always enjoy chatting with you, and you're a wealth of knowledge and experience when it comes to business.
Thank you. It was good fun.
Yeah, thanks again.
If people want to reach out or find you or get in contact with you, what's the best way?
So my website, profitscollective.com. You can also find me on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I'm only really active on Facebook and barely so. I'm currently going through a phase of not actually marketing for new clients, getting them anyway, because hooray, referrals. No marketing for new clients because I'm focusing on the acquisitions right now. So not very active on social media. I do have a podcast, Business Numbers Podcast. It's currently on a inter-season break, but I got a few episodes in the can, and probably in the next couple of months we'll start that up again for a new season. So yeah, a few different places. Always happy to hear from people. I do help like one or two people for free every month, because that's meaningful for me. So if anyone wants to reach out and learn a bit more about what I've been talking about, I'm happy to help them out.
That's awesome. Very generous of you.
Well, thanks again, Ben. Appreciate it. Look forward to getting you on again and seeing how the acquisition journey's gone for you.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that too.
The Aussie episode is complete.
Yes. G'day, mate. There we go. I've done the thing.
G'day.
On the Barbie.
I love it. Thanks, Ben.